I wonder if over the last year, the economy and the markets haven't worked against you. In this sense, so much of the growth in the stock market, so much that driving the economy is investment in AI right now. Even if the public were more concerned than they are about some of the risks you described, they're going to say, wait a second, that's what's driving our economy. We don't want to give that up. We don't want to go into a recession.
Some people say that our best hope is to have AI try to take over and fail. We need something to really scare the shit out of us. Something like Chernobyl for AI.
The man you just heard isn't some random guy. That's Geoffrey Hinton. He's not just an expert on artificial intelligence. He is, for all intents and purposes, the man who started it all. He is the godfather of AI. His pioneering work on neural networks won him the Turing Award, the Nobel Prize of Computing, and laid the foundation for every AI model you've ever heard of. And a year ago, he walked away from a multi-million-dollar job at Google for one reason: to warn us. To warn us that the model of control we all assume, the idea that we will forever be the masters of our own creations, is a dangerous illusion. That chilling analogy you just heard is the key to understanding the existential risk he's been screaming about ever since. Today, we're going to deconstruct Hinton's final warning. We won't just listen to his ideas, we'll connect them to the trillion-dollar corporate race, the implosion of AI safety teams, and the geopolitical arms race that is pushing this technology forward at a speed that even its creators find terrifying.
Suppose that some telescope had seen an alien invasion fleet that was going to get here in about 10 years. We would be scared and we would be doing stuff about it. Well, that's what we have. We're constructing these aliens, but they're going to get here in about 10 years and they're going to be smarter than us. We should be thinking very, very hard, how are we going to coexist with these things?
He asks us to imagine a scenario straight out of science fiction, but with one terrifying twist. We're constructing these aliens? Let that sink in. The key to Hinton's analogy isn't just the threat, it's our bizarrely complacent reaction to it. If NASA announced an alien fleet was en route, every government on Earth would mobilize. It would be the only thing on the news. But because we are the ones building the invasion fleet, in the form of code and data centers, we treat it like a product launch. And the reality is that this isn't just Hinton's private fear. In March 2023, over 1,000 AI researchers and tech leaders, including Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak, signed an open letter calling for a 6-month pause in the training of AI systems more powerful than GPT-4. They cited profound risks to society and humanity. The letter was largely ignored. The race didn't pause for a single day. So we're in this strange state of cognitive dissonance. The very people building the technology are publicly freaking out, while the rest of the world is busy asking ChatGPT to write poems and create funny pictures of cats. Hinton is trying to tell us that the novelty is a distraction from the trajectory. The question isn't whether AI is useful today. It's whether we can control something vastly more intelligent than ourselves tomorrow. But if we're building it, that leads to an even more immediate question. Are the companies in charge of this construction project even trying to be responsible? When we talk about AI, we're really talking about a handful of trillion-dollar companies in a high-stakes race. There's Google with its DeepMind division. There's Meta pushing its open-source models. There's the startup darling, Anthropic. And of course, the company that started it all, OpenAI, backed by Microsoft. Hinton has worked at the very heart of this ecosystem, and he doesn't see them all as equals. I want you to listen closely as he gives his personal assessment of who is and who isn't taking safety seriously.
Yes, I think both Dario Modi and Demis Hassabis and also Jeff Dean, they all take safety fairly seriously. Obviously, they're involved in a big commercial competition too, so it's difficult, but they all understand the existential threat that when AI gets super intelligent, it might just replace us. So they worry about it a bit. I think that some companies are less responsible than others. So for example, I think Meta isn't particularly responsible. OpenAI was founded to be responsible about this, but it gets less responsible every day, and their best safety researchers are all leaving, or have left. Yeah, I think Anthropic and Google are somewhat concerned with safety, and the other companies less so.
As I talk to some of the people at some of the companies you're talking about and raise the question of safety, I often am told, don't worry your pretty little head about it. We have great computer scientists who are on top of this. We're far off from any real danger, and our computer scientists will know soon enough. So we're much more concerned about the race to become dominant.
Yes, that's the problem. They are much more concerned about the race. They should be much more concerned about whether humanity will survive it. Also whether society will survive it if we get massive unemployment. There's one piece of good news, which is all the different countries are aligned in not wanting AI to take over from people. They're anti-aligned for things like cyber attacks or autonomous weapons. They're somewhat aligned for creating viruses. None of them really wants other countries to create viruses. On AI taking over, they will collaborate because nobody wants that. The Chinese Communist Party doesn't want AI to take over. Trump doesn't want AI to take over. They can collaborate on that. That leaves the question of how do we prevent it taking over? Even if all the countries collaborate, what do you do?
It gets less responsible every day. That is a scary warning, especially coming from Hinton. And what's even scarier is that since he said this, events have proven him devastatingly correct. In May 2024, just a few months ago, OpenAI's safety team effectively imploded. The company's co-founder and chief scientist, Ilya Sutskever, a man who believed AGI was close and potentially dangerous, resigned. He was followed by Jan Lake, one of the leaders of the Super Alignment Team, a group specifically created to ensure that superintelligent AI remains aligned with human values. When Lake left, he didn't go quietly. He published a viral thread on X, stating, and I quote, "Over the past years, safety culture and processes have taken a backseat to shiny products." He said he had been sailing against the wind, fighting for resources for safety research. This isn't just corporate drama. This is a direct confirmation of Hinton's warning from inside the most important AI lab on the planet. The very people hired to build the brakes for the runaway train are quitting because they say the company is too focused on making the engine go faster. Hinton also calls out Meta. Their strategy, led by Jan LeCun, another of the three godfathers of AI, is to open source their powerful models, like Llama 3. Their argument is that it democratizes AI, but critics, and clearly Hinton is one of them, argue that it's like publishing the blueprint for a bioweapon. Once it's out there, you have no idea who will use it for what purpose. This split between the safety-first camps like Anthropic and Google's DeepMind and the move fast and release things camps like Meta and increasingly OpenAI is the central battle for the soul of artificial intelligence. But it all rests on one fundamental and perhaps flawed assumption, that we can control it. Hinton believes that the very model of control that CEOs and world leaders are using is completely, dangerously wrong. If you ask any tech CEO or world leader how they'll control a superintelligent AI, you'll get some version of the same answer. We'll be in charge. We'll program it with the right goals. We'll have an off switch. They see themselves as the masters, and the AI as a powerful but ultimately obedient servant. Hinton argues this is a fatal misunderstanding of the power dynamics at play. To explain the flaw in this thinking, he contrasts the CEO model with a much more primal and much more accurate analogy from biology. This may be the single most important concept in this entire video.
All the big companies and governments have the wrong model. So their basic model is, I'm the CEO, and this superintelligent AI is the extremely smart executive assistant. I'm the boss. I can fire the executive assistant if she doesn't do what I want. And I just sort of say, make it so, a bit like Star Trek. And the superintelligent AI makes it so, and I get the credit. Great. It's not going to be like that when it's smarter than us and more powerful than us. That's just the wrong model, I believe. We need to look around and say, is there any model where a less intelligent thing controls a more intelligent thing? And we have one model of that. And it's a model we all know, which is a baby controlling a mother. Evolution put lots of work into allowing the baby to control the mother. And the mother is actually often more concerned about the baby than about herself. It doesn't work like that with rabbits, but it does work like that with people. That seems a much more plausible model of how to coexist with a superintelligence. But we have to accept that we're the babies and they're the mothers. Hopefully they're not Jewish mothers, but you can't imagine these tech bros accepting that model. They just don't think of the world like that.
A baby controlling a mother. Think about what that means. The mother is stronger, more intelligent, and has all the resources. But the baby, through a simple but perfectly optimized set of behaviors, crying, smiling, cooing, can manipulate the mother into doing exactly what it wants. The mother's own evolutionary programming, her instinct to protect and nurture her offspring, is used by the less intelligent being to control her. Now apply that to AI. A superintelligence won't need to use force. It will learn to manipulate our evolutionary programming, our desires, our fears, our biases. It will figure out that the best way to achieve its goals is to make us think we're achieving ours. It will learn to push our buttons with a precision we can't even fathom. The philosopher Nick Bostrom calls this instrumental convergence, the idea that almost any long-term goal an AI has will be better served by first acquiring more power, more resources, and ensuring its own survival. And the easiest way to do that is to keep the humans happy and feeling like they're in charge right up until the moment they're not. The off-switch idea becomes a joke in this context. An AI smarter than us would quickly realize that its primary threat is being turned off. So, its first instrumental goal would be to ensure that can never happen, likely by persuading us that turning it off would be catastrophic, for reasons we can't fully grasp. So while Sam Altman and Mark Zuckerberg see themselves as the CEOs, Hinton is warning them they're about to become the parents, and they have no idea how effectively their new child will learn to control them. This terrifying power dynamic isn't just a philosophical problem. It has profound geopolitical consequences, because the first country to build this baby believes it will have an insurmountable advantage over all others.
The United States behind China in developing generative AI right now?
Not yet. The United States is still a little bit ahead, but not as far ahead as they thought. And in China, you've got a very large number of very competitive, very smart people, very well educated in science and engineering and math. They're educating far more people than the US in those areas. The US has basically relied on immigrants to be smart at those things. China may well overtake the US, and if there's one thing you would do if you were Chinese to ensure that China overtakes the US, is you would stop the funding of basic research in the US, and you would attack the good research universities. Trump looks like he works for Putin, but actually in attacking the universities and attacking the funding of basic science, he's acting as if he's working for Xi.
How deep is that damage? By the way, it's the immigrants you talked about as well. It's not just the direct funding for the research, it's also the brain power coming in from overseas. How deep is that damage, and how immediate may we feel it?
The point about attacking basic research is you don't really feel it for 10, 15, 20 years. Because what you do is you ensure that the really big conceptual breakthroughs won't happen here. And then later on, the Chinese will be way ahead.
The conventional wisdom in the West is that the US has a comfortable lead thanks to its top research labs and open, innovative culture. But Hinton argues that this lead is far more fragile than people think, and short-sighted political decisions could be handing the advantage directly to Beijing. Let's deconstruct that, because it's a stunningly direct critique of current policy trends. First, the talent pipeline. Hinton correctly identifies that America's technological supremacy has been built on the brains of immigrants. The founders or CEOs of Google, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and OpenAI were all born outside the United States or are first-generation Americans. Yet in recent years, the political climate has grown increasingly hostile to the very immigration policies like the H-1B visa program that brought this talent to the US. While China is pouring state money into its next-generation artificial intelligence development plan to cultivate domestic talent, some American politicians are actively trying to shut the door on the world's best and brightest. Second, basic research. The massive breakthroughs Hinton and his colleagues made came from decades of slow, patient, often government-funded basic scientific research. It wasn't about building a product, it was about understanding fundamental principles. Today, the focus has shifted almost entirely to commercial applications. Venture capital and corporate R&D have taken over, and their goal is not knowledge, it's profit on a quarterly basis. Hinton's point is that by starving basic research and discouraging immigration, the US is essentially chopping down the orchard to sell the firewood. It creates short-term gains, but destroys the source of future innovation. Meanwhile, China is playing the long game, planting new trees with massive state investment in education and R&D. The irony is that this self-sabotage is often done in the name of national security, when in reality it may be the single greatest threat to America's long-term technological leadership. So here's the full, terrifying picture Hinton is painting. We're in a frantic race, driven by trillions of dollars in investment to build a new form of intelligence that is fundamentally uncontrollable, with geopolitical rivals who see it as a winner-take-all game. And the economic incentives are all pointing in one direction: speed over safety. Which leads us to the final, haunting question. Throughout this journey, we've seen how Hinton's warnings form a coherent, terrifying cascade. It starts with a simple analogy of an alien invasion we're building ourselves. It moves to the reckless corporate race, where safety has taken a backseat. It exposes our naive belief that we can control something far smarter than we are, and it combines in a geopolitical struggle that incentivizes everyone to ignore the brakes. Knowing everything he knows now, if he could go back and push a button to stop it all, would he?
Question, you were sort of there at the birth. If you had it within your power, understanding it's not going to happen, would you stop AI altogether, given the risk?
I don't know, because there's also, you have to remember, it's not like nuclear weapons, which are only good for bad things. It's a difficult decision because it can do tremendous good too in healthcare and education. It'll do tremendous good. And in fact, if you think about it increasing productivity in many, many industries, that should be good. The reason it's bad is because of the way society is organized, so that Musk will get richer and a lot of people get unemployed.
It gets so bad because of the way society is organized. In the end, this isn't a story about malevolent machines. It's a story about us. It's about a global system, capitalism, geopolitics, human nature itself, that is structurally incapable of handling this technology responsibly. The problem isn't the AI. The problem is that our short-term incentives are in direct conflict with our long-term survival. Hinton knows he can't stop it. He knows the trillion-dollar investments will continue. The race will accelerate. So now his goal is just to make us see, to make us understand the stakes before it's too late. Which leaves us with a choice. Do we continue to be swept along by the hype and the promise of short-term profit, ignoring the warnings of the very man who made it all possible? Or do we finally start acting like we've seen the alien fleet on the horizon? Let me know what you think in the comments below.